Hi there, I'm Donnelly from RotoBaller, and you know what time it is? It is time for starts and sits at the tight end position, Trick or Treat edition. And this week, I have to remind you that this is being recorded on Monday, so plenty can still take place between now and Sunday's kickoffs. So for all the latest fantasy football news, head to rotoballer.com or head to the RotoBaller Discord channel. Now let's talk about some of those tasty treats at the tight end position, starting with Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots as they take on the Washington Commanders. The Patriots, they were dealt a devastating blow earlier this week as they found out that Kendrick Bourne, their leader in receptions, targets, yards, and touchdowns, he ended up tearing his ACL last Sunday. So that means that someone has to step up, and Hunter Henry, he did have some early season success with Mac Jones. With the trade deadline looming, there's no guarantee that Henry is a Patriot when this is all said and done, when the Patriots face the Commanders. But the Commanders are a team that has allowed 254 yards passing and 4 touchdowns to the tight end position this season. For fantasy, that translates into roughly 18.35 fantasy points per game. So I would expect to see the New England Patriots make up for the loss of Kendrick Bourne with more 2 tight end sets to get both Henry and Mike Gesicki going early and often in this one. Another tasty treat at the tight end position, it goes to Buffalo's Dalton Kincaid against the Cincinnati Bengals. Kincaid had somewhat of a breakout performance on Thursday Night Football there last week, holding at 5 of 7 targets for 65 yards and a touchdown, finishing as a top 5 fantasy option at the tight end position for week number 8. Expect this week to be much the same as the rookie faces a Bengals team, although they've been tough as of late, have allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to the tight end position this season, yielding 15.11 fantasy points per game. Only the New York Jets have allowed more passing touchdowns to the position than the Bengals have this season. With Sam Laporta, Evan Ingram, and George Kittle all being unavailable this week, Dalton Kincaid becomes even a more enticing option at the most frightening position in all of fantasy. Another tight end you can feel good about this week is Donald Parham versus the New York Jets. Yes, Gerald Everett, he is a matchup-based starter that was basically outmatched in every contest that he played. And whether it be his ineffectiveness or his injuries, he has given way to Donald Parham in recent weeks. Everett on the season, he's caught 19 of 23 passes for 149 yards and a pair of scores. You know what, that's fine, I guess, at the tight end position. But his counterpart there, Parham, has hauled in 13 of 19 targets for 104 yards. And get this, 4 touchdowns. Yes, 4 touchdowns. And this week, the Chargers are facing a Jets team, as I mentioned, that have allowed the league high 5 receiving touchdowns to the position and have allowed the 8th most fantasy points on average this year. Over the last 4 weeks, New York has allowed 16 catches and 162 yards and a pair of scores to the position. How about some fantasy tricks? Well, how about Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals going against the Cleveland Browns? Unfortunately for fantasy managers, McBride filled up on too many tasty treats last week and left him with a fantasy tummy ache here in week number 9. The Cardinals and McBride, they face a Browns defense that is allowing the fewest fantasy points to the tight end position this season, holding them to less than 5 fantasy points per game. Heck, McBride's Halloween costume has him dressing up as a fantasy relevant option. However, Scooby and the gang, they pulled back that mask early this week to reveal that there isn't really much to see here. Now maybe I'm fooling myself, as the Ravens were also one of the more difficult matchups for tight ends, and McBride, he did catch 10 of 14 targets, 4 touchdowns and 95 yards just a week ago. Nah, forget about it. Only a fool would go chasing fantasy points from a Cardinals offense. As you can see, I clearly ain't no fool. Another tight end that I'm not falling for this week is David Njoku versus Arizona. Sticking with this Browns-Cardinals game, I'm telling you, David Njoku is another fantasy trick. Luckily for fantasy managers, Mark Andrews, he managed to find the end zone last week, turning what would have been a disappointing 4-catch, 40-yard performance into something respectable. Expect much the same, minus the touchdown for Njoku this week as the Cardinals. Yes, the Cardinals are among the elite defenses when it comes to holding opposing tight ends in check. Andrews' touchdown last week was the first touchdown they had allowed in 5 weeks. And if I was willing to put Andrews on my sit list, you better darn well believe I'm going to put Njoku on it. One more nasty trick this week in fantasy is Cole Kmet versus the New Orleans Saints. Sticking with the don't go chasing waterfalls, don't go chasing fantasy points theme, I am out. I am avoiding Cole Kmet against the Saints. This game is down in New Orleans, one of the scariest places in North America, and we are talking about the scariest position in all of fantasy. Well, if that ain't a sign, I don't know what is. On the season, the Saints have been one of the top 5 or 6 fantasy defenses amongst this position, allowing less than 9 fantasy points per game. Sure, last week, some jobber named Andrew Ogletree once again helped no one when he ended up scoring a touchdown on his only grab of the game. Mo Cox, he only had one grab on the game. I trust New Orleans more than I trust Cole Kmet. So once again, here are your fantasy trick or treats at the tight end position. Treats, Hunter Henry, he looks to replace the loss of Kendrick Bourne in a tight end friendly matchup here against the Commanders. Treat, Dalton Kincaid has benefited from Josh Allen spreading the ball around the field, much the same as expected here against the Bengals. Another treat, Donald Parham has 4 touchdowns this season. The Jets have allowed 5 touchdowns. The math is rather simple here, people. As for the tricks, chasing fantasy points is going to give you a tummy ache. So sit both Trey McBride and David Njoku, as both the Browns and the Cardinals are among the elite at defending the tight end position this season. Also sit Cole Kmet against the Saints. I get some bad mojo here in this matchup when it comes to Kmet facing the Saints' top 6 fantasy defense. With that all said, be sure to check out RotoBaller's YouTube channel. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for all your fantasy football needs.